There's one argument in the Mortal Kombat community that will never die. No matter how many games come out, no matter how many patches happen, no matter how many tournaments are played, fans will always be split on this one thing, and that is which Mortal Kombat game is actually the best. And the funny part is, every single NRS era game has a different group of fans that swear their game is peak. So today we're breaking down all the NRS games, which is MK9 all the way to MK1, and why Mortal Kombat fans will literally never agree on this. And yeah, I'll be honest in the end, because for me, there is one clear winner, but stay tuned to figure out which game that I love the most. But before we get into today's video, if you guys don't know me by now, I'm Mr. Frosty Flames, but you can call me Mike. We do anything gaming news, reviews, playthroughs, analysis, and we do it in a chill way with no over editing BS. Thank you guys for getting me to 1800 subs, which means that I will be playing Mortal Kombat Sub-Zero Mythologies, which, as you guys know, is one of the hardest and one of the worst Mortal Kombat games ever made. So if you want to see me suffer, hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for that video to come out pretty soon. Anyways, let's get back to the video. We're gonna start with the NRS game that brought everything back, and that is Mortal Kombat 2011, Mortal Kombat 9 as you guys know it. It's basically the reset button that saved Mortal Kombat. It sort of brought the series back to life with the classic roster energy, with fast-paced gameplay, adding X-rays, and even rebooting the story and bringing the gameplay back to that arcade-style feel. And some pros of the game would be it has a very balanced identity between casual and competitive. It also has an iconic roster because, you know, it brings back all the arcade classic characters. It's essentially a reboot of the original arcade games, MK1 all the way to MK3, and that also invokes a strong nostalgia factor. And then when they return to the 2D style combat, it is very simple but effective gameplay. But this game isn't perfect. MK9 is not perfect whatsoever. There are some cons where the game is a bit stiff compared to later games, and obviously it is not as deep as later games like MKX or MK11 or MK1, and the online wasn't perfect long term. But the reputation today is MK9 is still a safe pick. It's the game that people point to when they want a classic Mortal Kombat feel without too much chaos. But that doesn't fully dominate one category. It's sort of like a jack of all trades, and that's why I said MK9 is the jack of all trades pick. And then we move on to MKX, and this is what I call the gameplay king, because this is the fan favorite for competitive gameplay. MKX is where Mortal Kombat said we're gonna go all in on aggression. This game is fast, like brutally fast. I literally just made an MKX video where I go over all of this in detail because everything is pressure heavy, combo heavy. It's very momentum based, and anyone could just explode on their opponent and deal massive amounts of damage. And with the pros of this game, it's arguably the best combat in modern MK. It offers insane offense and pressure. There's hype tournament matches, you know. This is a fun game to watch, and it has a strong identity with aggression and dark themes and etc, and it has a rewarding skill expression in which this game is very hard to master, but once you do master it, you could easily dominate everyone online, and it's very satisfying to do so. But like other Mortal Kombat games, this game also has its cons, in which balance could feel wild at times. Like if you look at the tier list, the S tier characters really dominate the competitive scene, and if you try to play anyone else, it's gonna feel like you're going up a steep slope, like you gotta fight so hard to win, and it's not beginner friendly at all. And the visuals were also very controversial at launch. I mean, that's also opinion based, but a lot of people didn't like the darker tones. Obviously I do like it, and I love how they incorporated like horror characters into this game because it really matches. However, a lot of people didn't like it. They wanted more of like an MK9 or an MK11 sort of feeling to the game. And also the PC launch issues hurt early reputation because the PC launch was honestly terrible for MKX. But looking back at it now, this is the interesting part, because in my previous video I go over this. MKX went from this is too much to this was peak Mortal Kombat gameplay, and honestly I do agree with that shift because Mortal Kombat X feels like the most pure version of modern Mortal Kombat, and there's no hesitation, there's no slowing down, it's just pure pressure and chaos. And then afterwards we get to the most divisive one, and that's Mortal Kombat 11. MK11 slowed everything down, and I mean a lot. The shift from MKX to MK11 is very noticeable. It became more defensive, more methodical, more cinematic, and more structured, and compared to MKX's aggression, that is a huge difference. Now this game had a lot of good to it, the presentation was amazing. I feel like out of all the Mortal Kombat games, this one had the best customization systems. It had huge single player content for an NRS title. Obviously the 3D era games still had the best, single player content, but this game was the peak for the NRS era. The Crypt was at its peak because you could have that open world exploration, right? And it was very beginner friendly. You could hand anyone a controller to play MK11 and they would play it and do decent at the game. And there was also a strong visual polish. But obviously the bad stuff are the slower gameplay, you have less freedom in neutral if you want to go technical, and the defensive mechanics felt restrictive, and it's not really exciting competitively. This game was frankly boring to watch, and the reputation today is that it wasn't really a good game, but people are starting to say that okay, it was okay compared to MK1 because MK1 really doesn't have anything going for it really right now, but MK11 at least had some stuff going for it, and now people are looking back at it as it's the content and casual king because people love it for the things to do, things to unlock, things to customize, but competitively a lot of MK players felt that it lost that explosive MKX energy, which really hurt its reputation bad. And then next was MK1 obviously, and if I had to give this game something, I would say that it is the presentation beast because MK1 is easily the best looking Mortal Kombat game ever made. That intro when you're blowing through space and then you're going into Liu Kang's new timeline and he's narrating it. I mean, it really does look beautiful and the ambiance is great. There's no debate about it. The presentation is insane. Even the cinematic story, the character designs, the animations, the intros and the outros, they're very good, but gameplay wise, it introduced a very controversial system, and that's the cameos. But there are good stuff about this game. Like I said, the best visuals. I think it has strong cinematic identity. I mean, like everything about the game really does look good. The gameplay is very flashy. I don't think it's as flashy as MKX, but it is very flashy and is a second contender to probably, MKX right behind it. And also I love the roster. I love how they revitalized a lot of the 3D era characters into MK1. That's why I think the appeal was there initially when hyping up the game in the trailers, because we're like, bro, Astro's back, Havoc's back, Reiko's back, and it's crazy. And it also does have that modern polish that a lot of modern fighting games do have, so it's really the most modern MK game that you could get. But the cameo system did divide players. The gameplay does feel cluttered and balanced discussions are constant. Identity feels debated in the community, and that's why a lot of players don't really like Mortal Kombat 1. Invasions mode really sucked, and they took out a lot of content and a lot of single player modes that really benefited the Mortal Kombat genre, like the Crypt, like with the open world Crypt that MK11 had. They really just took that out and they replaced it with Invasions mode, which really sucked, and they didn't even bring back anything cool. Like they didn't have Test Your Might, they didn't have Conquest mode, any of those stuff. And to be honest, I'd have to say that Mortal Kombat 1, when viewed at today, is the worst NRS era game. You heard me right, it is the worst one. It is because what it did for Mortal Kombat as a whole really threw away a lot of players. I mean, it divided players with the cameo system. It didn't really have any single player content to keep player retention, and on top of that, when you look at the competitors today like Street Fighter 6 and Tekken 8, they're stealing a lot of Mortal Kombat fans and they're going to that game. But you could still say MK1 is the presentation champion. It really does look like the future of Mortal Kombat, but whether it feels best to play, this is where fans are split, and this is the key problem. Each MK game in the NRS era is best at something different. MK9 is a balanced classic reboot, MKX is the gameplay king, MK11 is the content and casual king, and I guess MK1 you could say is the presentation king. So when fans argue, they're not even arguing about the same thing, they're arguing about the gameplay, the visuals, the content, the nostalgia, the competitiveness, and that's why this debate will never end. And you want to hear my take? I've thought about it a lot, and for me, I don't even think it's close. MKX is the best modern Mortal Kombat game because at the end of the day, I'd rather play a game that feels fast, aggressive, intense, exciting, and unpredictable than one that is just polished or cinematic. MKX understood something important, and that's Mortal Kombat is at its best when it feels dangerous. And even now, years later, I still think MKX has the strongest gameplay identity of all the Mortal Kombat games, period. So now I just want to ask you guys, my fans, if you could only pick one Mortal Kombat game to represent the franchise going forward, what would it be? Would it be MK9 for the balance of just everything? Would it be MKX for the gameplay? Would it be MK11 for the content, or MK1 for presentation? I made a lot of 3D era videos, so I would just want to focus on the NRS scene, and I want to just throw away all the midway games right now because I want to focus on what is the best NRS level game, because I already made my choice and I'm sticking with MKX. I just want to hear yours, so comment down below your choice. This is going to be it for today's video, guys. Make sure you like, subscribe, and join the Frosty Flames Legion. Comment, share, do all that stuff. Thank y'all for watching. Mr. Frosty Flames out. Ciao.